Hey guys, welcome to another video for this week. As you can see, I am back in my truck doing another little bit of a different setup. Been traveling a lot this summer, hence why you'll be likely seeing some videos from filming in my truck or filming in a hotel. Getting out of the office a little bit, seeing the country, getting out and traveling. However, I want to talk about something this week that I got a request about, and something that I feel would be really helpful for those who are trying to manifest a specific person. As I know many people who watch this channel are on that journey, but even if it's not specifically a person, it could be for anything else. I want to talk about how I manifested my SP and the things that I did specifically, and some of the things that I notice people are going about it in the not most effective way to give some clarity and give some insight. This is something that I was talking about with a client last week, and it kind of stuck with me. And though I did make a video about my journey, the story of my journey with my person, I did talk a bit in that video about some of the steps that I made, but I want to go a little bit more into detail about what I did and some of the things that I was doing that were not helping or were not very effective, and how I changed that. So that when I started to make these changes, when I started to shift the perspective and what I was doing and the way that I was approaching this, things moved rapidly. So if manifestation and conscious creation are topics that you want to learn more about, definitely do not forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you enjoy this video and this content, please do me a solid and give it a thumbs up. This tells the YouTube algorithm to do its thing, work its magic, and put it out in front of more people so that more of you on this journey can get this really helpful information. First thing that I want to note right off the bat, the most important thing to sort of keep at the forefront of your mind when it comes to even how we are viewing manifestation and conscious creation is I want you to start thinking of this not as trying to change something or get. And I've mentioned this before, I'm going to keep saying it, but we want to manifest the state. Everything is about manifesting the state of consciousness. So it's not even the desire itself that is the focus and attention. It's the state. Everything manifests from the state. So before I dive into some of the things that I was doing that were not super effective, or before I start diving into what I did and how I did manifest my person, I want to talk about some of the things that were not very effective. Excuse me. Had that backwards. When I first started to turn my attention to manifesting my SP, and again, you can watch my story. I'll leave that link up here if you haven't watched it already. I talk more in detail about just the journey itself, but when I first was approaching this, the biggest thing that I was doing that was not serving me was I was so fixated on him and getting him back and changing and fixing the situation. I was looking at it like this is a problem that I need to figure out how to fix. And what that did was it kept me fixated on the fact that there's a problem. I was unaware at the time. I was keeping my attention on what I didn't want. So right off the bat, I was setting myself up for the same old to keep playing out. I was very much in a place where I was applying the techniques in a sense of desperation. And I was applying the techniques in a desperate, urgent attempt to try to fix this and get him back. And I think that that's the most important thing to note and realize when we're doing this, that the law of assumption is all about the beliefs and assumptions, but it is about what we focus our attention on, how we go about doing things. So we really need to make sure that we're mindful of the perspective that we're approaching this and the lens that we're approaching this through. Because I was looking for a quick fix. I was looking to do whatever it would take to sort of get him back. Though I had already been very successful with the law at that point, when I was beginning to do the work on manifesting my SP, a lot of the convictions that I had, a lot of the concept of self at that time was based in a state of rejection, a state of abandonment and fear. I was very, very fearful, and this is never a state we want to try to manifest from. So I struggled greatly initially because of this approach. It was after several months of frustration and lack of movement that I had an epiphany. I had a realization of what I was doing. And I realized that this is not about my SP. It was about being and becoming the person that I desire to be. When you think about that relationship with your SP, that perfect dream situation, that perfect dream scenario, what is the kind of person and the qualities of that person? Who are you as that person? Describe the relationship that you desire to have and experience. And this is one of the first things that I did. I mapped out what I wanted that relationship to look like, the foundations of it. The desire was trust. It needed to be built on mutual trust and communication. It needed to be built on honesty. It needed to be built on integrity and confidence and security. And then I looked at myself in comparison to that. What I had just described as my desire scenario, my desired relationship with my SP. Was I feeling confident? Was I feeling trustful? Was I feeling like I could trust them? Was I feeling like I could trust myself? Do you see where I'm going here? Though many aspects had manifested, though I had really built strong convictions in the law, I had seen incredible things come to pass, I realized through careful observation that I was still holding on to a lot of the fear that was stemming from the old story of me and SP, and the old stories in general. I took a good hard look at my ideas of relationships, like what were the fundamental things that I believed about relationships. And the first things that came to me, what my convictions were at that time, was that people can't automatically be trusted. SP can't be trusted because he lied to me this one time. SP can't be trusted because he's attractive and talks to other women, therefore he must be cheating on me. I had these beliefs around relationships in general that were not good. While I had the desire for this beautiful relationship with my SP, built on mutual trust and admiration and loyalty and integrity, that was not at all lining up with my beliefs about SP at that time. And it was not at all lining up about my beliefs in general. What I'm trying to say is that this is the art of becoming. And though my desire was something that I was deeply, deeply striving for, I wanted that so bad. I just wanted that dream relationship. I wanted that perfect fairy tale ending. I wanted things to be like when we first started dating, and it was magical. It was a dream. Because of my convictions around relationships, because I had an inherent distrust in men and people in general, because I didn't feel good enough, that I didn't feel that I could be the most important person in his world. There was a clear disconnect between that desired state and the state that I was embodying. And that's really the point that I'm trying to drive home here, is we need to take a look at both, because something that we typically do, and something that I see happen a lot, is that we just try to jump right into the techniques, and just day in, day out, we're trying desperately, we're affirming 1,000 times, and we're just urgently trying to make this thing happen. But if we take a look at ourselves, where we are now, and if you really describe the situation, and you describe your circumstance, and you describe how you're feeling about UNSP, and you describe how you're feeling about relationships in general, a lot of times there's a disconnect there. And we cannot put old wine into new bottles. We cannot take these aspects of the old story with us into that new fold, into the state of the wish fulfilled. We cannot just apply the techniques for a fraction of the day and then spend the rest of the day reminiscing and ruminating over that old story and all of the things that happened, all the things that went wrong, about, what they said to you, and the fights that broke out, and all of the terrible things that come with this old story with UNSP. And this is what I see time and time again. First things first, we need to take a look at the current state, where we are right now, what the story is with us and SP, like the first things that come to your mind when SP comes to mind, and the feelings and beliefs that you hold around relationships and love in general. Do you feel that you're good enough? Or does it feel like there's competition? Do you feel a sense of trust? Do you feel a sense of mutual respect? If the answer is no, then we need to change those aspects. And we do that through changing the state. We need to embody a new state entirely. Everything manifests from the state of consciousness. If we're spending a handful of minutes, 30 minutes a day, doing techniques, maybe even an hour a day doing techniques and affirmations and visualizing, but the rest of the time we are stuck in that old story and the circumstances, this is why it feels like there's no movement happening. We cannot keep taking that old story and fixating on it. If we keep fixating on the past events and all of the ways we feel that they wronged us, they hurt us, or we hurt them, or all of the ways in which it's impossible, or what they're doing now, or the fears of them going off with somebody else, if this is taking residency in your mind, this needs to be changed first. So after I really did the comparison between what I desired and where I was at that time, the first thing I did was I revised. I revised all the shit that came with that old story. When it comes to revision, we need to have the understanding that every moment is a completely blank slate. In each moment to moment, it is like a brand new canvas. What we have been doing, is we've been taking the events and the circumstances of the past, and we use them as a way to determine, or a way to try to predict what's going to happen in the future. And a lot of times we do that from really undesired, really unwanted circumstance. They're probably already with somebody else. They're probably with a third party. They, don't want to be with me because they told me off. They said they didn't want to be with me. They moved far away. All of these things, we're taking past experiences and we're using it going forward. Each moment is a brand new moment. It doesn't matter what happened 5 minutes ago. It doesn't matter what happened 5 years ago. None of that matters. All of creation is finished. All things exist. All states, scenarios, circumstances, the version of each person, all of that is real, and it's right now. If we are hanging on to that old story, we'll keep ourselves in the hamster wheel indefinitely, or we'll manifest them just to watch them leave again. Because it is the old stories and those old circumstances and how it affected us that determines what is going to happen. Anytime you catch yourself reminiscing on that old story, anytime you reminisce on all of the things that went wrong, the fights that you had, anytime you catch yourself fighting with them in your mind, that needs to be revised, because we cannot take that with us. And we don't have to take it with us, because as we can imagine and impress that new state and embody that new state for something in the future, we can do the same thing for the past. And the more that we revise, the more that that new revised memory, that new revised story is going to take residency. It is going to occupy your mind, and it's going to be what you conform to. It's going to be what you go to instead of that old one. So the first thing that I did after getting clear on the state that I wanted versus the state I was in at that moment, revision. When Neville says that there is no one to change but self, he meant that in every literal sense of the word. But this is more than just doing a dance to try to get something. This is about becoming. This is about embodying that new state. Often what people tell me is that initially it can feel so difficult to imagine themselves in a loving scene, to imagine them lovingly, because we're still very hurt by what happened. Whether we feel like it was an act of betrayal or it was something that we did, if you find that it is difficult to imagine that desired state, if it is difficult to imagine and perpetuate that state because of the old story, instead we need to drop the focus from them, and instead we need to focus on us, and we need to focus instead on becoming the person that we desire to be. If what you desire is that loving relationship built on trust, built on mutual admiration, built on honesty and integrity, if that is the desire, then you must become the person who embodies those traits. So we need to first become the person that embodies the state of a healthy mutual relationship. So I needed to work on me, and you must work on you first, on becoming that version, that person. So if we still hold on to the beliefs that we're not good enough, that we're always second best, or that we get easily overlooked, if we fear things like competition, that right there is indication that we feel threatened by somebody else. That is a perfect example of something that we want to take note of and become something different. I cannot stress enough the importance of becoming. I made the biggest mistake the first time around in that I maintain that old state of consciousness. I did not really change any aspects of me. I still had my old beliefs. I still had my old assumptions, my own convictions, my old concepts around relationships, and they were very, very poor concepts at best. I hung on to those and just fixated on getting my person back. And he did come back. Mind you, it took a while, but he came back. But because I was still that same person, I was still embodying that old state. Ergo, I fell right back into those old fears and those old doubts, and the cycle repeated itself. And he left me again. So the second time around, it had to be about becoming. I had to become the person that I wanted to be in order to maintain that state of consciousness, that perfect trust and that perfect love. I needed to see them as my best friend, not as somebody that I had to be fearful of. I needed to see them as somebody I could trust. And that meant that I needed to have confidence in myself. My insecurities were only going to sabotage it again. Focus on the general state first. If it feels too difficult to imagine them, if it doesn't feel real, if it doesn't feel believable, if there's still pain, if there's still hurt from what happened, heal first. Because it was only then, once I had healed myself, once I had really begun to keep my focus and attention on being the best version of me, it was only after I revised all of the things, all of the garbage, all of the ideas that I had about relationships. It was only when I addressed my fears, my doubts, my insecurities, my limitations, and I began to instead imagine a whole new version, a whole new reality where I was now a person that was confident in love, confident in life, loving of myself. It was only then that I was able to put my attention back on my SP without it feeling hurtful, without it bringing up old memories, without getting triggered by them. The point I guess I'm really trying to make is that though we may be fearful to turn the attention within and to really put the attention on us, though it may feel scary to turn our attention away from them and not keep them firmly planted on that pedestal, if we are hanging on to that old story and those old fears and that old pain, we will not manifest what we desire from that state, period. So first and foremost needs to be you. Put yourself first. Focus on healing from any of the pain, any of the insecurities. Focus on really dismantling that old version of you. You do this through revision. You do this by imagining yourself as the person that you desire to be, the person that you would need to be to embody the traits that come with that desire. It was only then that I was able to turn my attention back and I could truly imagine and feel and sustain the imaginal acts of the two of us back together without getting triggered, or without doubting myself, or without feeling fearful and insecure. Manifestation is not about the desire itself. A good way to look at it, and something to always sort of really keep in mind, is to think about it from the state. We want to manifest the state because the desire is the byproduct of that state. The desire must unfold from that state. Whatever it is we desire has to come to pass from that state. But if we are not embodying that state, if we are in conflict with that state, if we are still hanging on to the old insecurities and doubts and fears and the old concept of self that sabotaged everything in the first place, this is what needs to be changed first. Because it's once we do this, it is once we really pay attention to this, it's once we really begin to detach ourselves from all of the old concepts. It is once we begin to really detach ourselves from that old story. It is once we learn to forgive them and forgive ourselves. It is only then that I was able to turn my attention back to SP and successfully manifest him back. Once you do this, once you move into a state of perfect trust, once you move into the state of loved and being loved and commitment, once you move into that general state, then you can turn your attention back to SP. And that is how you will manifest every time anything that you want. So I know that this was a bit of a longer video, but I wanted to really kind of break down some of the things and discrepancies that I noticed from what other people have done, from what I have done. These were the mistakes that I made and what I did ultimately to overcome those, and how it went from a very turbulent, very dysfunctional relationship to being my very best friend, my perfect partner for the last 4 years, and the man that I'm going to marry. But it was only when I changed myself. That is how you manifest your specific person. That is how I manifested mine, and that is how you will manifest yours too. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll bet it was a bit long, but I hope you found it worth it. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, do not forget to check out my other resources. I have links below for one-on-one coaching, my blog, my social groups, my podcast. I've got so many goodies down there for you guys. So definitely don't forget to check the description box below. Also, don't forget to check out the other videos on this channel. Each go into different topics, but all pertain on how to manifest the very best life possible. So until we meet again, you guys, as always, please do take care. Be sure to be well, and never forget, it's about manifesting the state. The desire unfolds from the state, naturally. Much love and happy manifesting, you guys.